As a quick introduction, my name is Carrie Beaulieu. I work for the company Affluence, and we build a software called Priority Matrix. Priority Matrix is built to help managers get better visibility of what their team is working on, to increase accountability and also streamline collaboration. And our presentation today is actually titled Unleash Your Full Potential. And the reason for that is because when we talk about things like streamlining collaboration and increasing accountability in your team, what we really mean is just making sure that everybody is really performing to their highest capacity and nothing important is slipping through the cracks. When it comes to team collaboration, if you're a principal or a project manager, I believe we've all been in this situation, which is you had a plan for your project that was going to be perfect. However, somewhere down the line, something fell behind or an emergency came up. Maybe a project owner reached out to you and they changed their mind about something, or the quality of work wasn't what they wanted it to be, so then they come back and they're going to ask you to do something again. And when this happens, we typically have to shuffle that schedule around and add on more work to it. However, somewhere along the line when we're doing this, we have to choose what we're going to work on and what we're not going to do, because we have so many tasks on our list that we have to say we're going to leave something for later. And when this happens, this can end up with projects being delayed if we don't choose it, in a calculated manner, or if something was put on somebody's plate and they weren't really sure of it. And this ends up with that uncomfortable situation where you have to inform the project owner that maybe the project's been delayed. Situations that can also, cause problems when we talk about team collaboration can also be as simple as you delegating something to somebody and, they leave it on their desk, and next thing you know, 2 weeks have gone by and you haven't gotten an update. And maybe in this case, you didn't even remember about it because they didn't update you. So what we're going to talk about today are kind of strategies to overcome that. And I think the biggest question we have to ask ourselves when we run into these situations is, why do things like this happen? And when I talk about why today, we're talking about why is there sometimes what we perceive as a lack of accountability within our team. And based on our research, we actually came to 4 main conclusions, which is communication or misalignment of expectations, a lack of ownership. And this is what we mean when there's a case where somebody says, I wasn't really sure this was my responsibility, or I thought somebody else was going to do it. Mismatched priorities, and also resources stretched thin. And by that, I mean, I think we are all operating at a high capacity, especially if you're trying to grow your business. You're always pushing those limits, and this results in a situation where your resources are stretched so thin that you're making choices about what you want to work on and what you're not going to do. And if you have mismatched priorities, something you consider high priority, something else somebody considers low priority, this can result in making a choice that might end up delaying the project. So being able to keep those priorities uniform across your team can actually help really eradicate what we sometimes perceive as a lack of accountability. And this is what leads me to the simple concept that I want to teach you guys about today for reaching team alignment. And it starts with the Eisenhower Matrix, which is one of the most well-known strategies for prioritization that exists. And it's taught in a lot of management courses, anywhere from universities to special management training courses that people go to. And what this concept asks you to do is break your to-do list up based on 2 criteria. And those criteria are, how critical is this task and how urgently does it need to be done? And the reason this works is because when we have more on our plate than we are realistically able to handle, we always have to choose something to leave for later or to take off the list. And by breaking our tasks up in this manner, we make sure that we're focused on what's really most critical and what needs to be done now. And, I believe that this by itself is enough to really change the way your team thinks and make sure that everybody is focused on the tasks that are most important. However, when this becomes really effective is actually when you spread it out across your team and make sure that there's alignment across the board. So let's talk about what that looks like. What ideally I would like you to do is take a moment, you can think about this by yourself or do this exercise later with your team. So take a moment and think about a project you're working on now, and think about the priorities for that project. Maybe you have 10, 20, and go down that list and then categorize them into the quadrants that we just talked about, the Eisenhower Matrix, by asking yourself if each of those items is important or urgent. And then You can gather 2 to 3 other people and ask them to do the same thing and compare notes. And the most important thing to look for here is not only is there alignment, but where is there misalignment, and then talk about why. And what I want you to think about is imagining a situation where, the priorities for this project and perhaps even, additional information such as their due dates and who was responsible for each of them was projected on a wall somewhere in your office. Or maybe you were running through this every time you had a meeting. And I want you to ask yourself how much time you think you'd be able to save resolving miscommunications or even going back and doing duplicate work just by having something like this uniform across the board for your team in a place where everybody could see it and access it on a regular basis.